Is this the first failure of the Universal Monster crossover? Welcome to the channel, I'm Jonathan. Today we're going to be looking at Raphael as Frankenstein's monster. We're going to look at details, articulation, and see what kind of poses we can get. And be sure to subscribe so that way you can follow along as we open up every NECA figure that I buy. Not all the ones they make, just the ones that I get. Let's get into it. So let's check out the box. Obviously, this one has authentic battle damage, so that's pretty cool. Very unique. I doubt there's another box out there that has this exact thing, so very, very unique. And typically, damage on a box like this really ups the value of a figure. And with the side of the box, you get all of these previews. Now, this figure did come out well before April, but they had to kind of a teaser block there. And if you are loving these figures, if you jump through this one and you like everything you're seeing with Raphael, I did cover April as the Bride of Frankenstein and Michelangelo as the Mummy. We just gotta find that boy. Always some beautiful photography done based on the figure itself. So as a reminder, if you haven't seen the other unboxings and reviews of these figures, this is an illustration where everything else is an actual photograph of the figure. So great artwork in this series. And on the bottom here, we get to cover all of the people involved in that. And this is the person that has been doing the cover illustration. So it's always nice to give them some additional call out because they put a lot of work into it and make the front of these boxes spectacular. On the inside, we have, of course, the figure, all of the detailed pieces that you get inside the box. Another great shot of Raphael as Frankenstein's monster. So with that glare, let's open it up and see what we got. There we go, Raphael in the plastic packaging. Let's figure out how much work we gotta do to get these little tabs undone and get him out of this package. So Raphael's actually not too bad. He's got one large one here, one on each hand, and then the other pieces are just popped into the plastic. Whew, he is a big boy. All right, so quick overview of Raphael as Frankenstein's monster. Obviously, you can already see there's a lot of details, which we will get into, but here's the figure. You get his size, which are shaped like lightning bolts, and very similar to what you get with April's, but I do believe the coloring is actually different for April's. A couple of extra hand options per side, and they look to be, you know, 2 fists and 2 semi-open hands to hold his size. Plus, you got those things. So one big thing that we notice with this figure is that, you know, we got his weapons, we got his hands, we got that piece of cat hair or whatever floating, but we don't have an additional head. April had one, Michelangelo had one. I don't know about Leo yet, but maybe there's something that will make up for that. Let's get an overview of what we see here on him. I mean, he is a heavy figure compared to everything else. Kind of expected. I mean, it's a Frankenstein's monster. There's a lot of extra weight in here. He's very big. That 5 head. All right, well, let's get into the details of this figure and his accessories. And as you would expect from the cover art, the box art, everything from the overview, the colors, the details, the spots, we got patches in the clothing, the coloring on the wrinkles, like it's worn clothing, you know, it's been used. Even with as much detail as I can get out of this camera, I don't know if I'm going to be doing it justice. We have this gauge in here. It's just beat up and dirty. Look at the patches. I mean, this, just the work in here, the cracked shell, the neck. I mean, they are deep, deep set in this figure, but the eyes are still very detailed. All of those his eyelids and everything, the hair. Look at this. Essentially the staples holding everything together. This tube, this chain, I mean, it's a real metal piece. Look at this manhole cover as part to hold his shell together because there's a big hole in it. The gauge from the front connects to the gauge on the back. There's a huge crack going across it that's supposed to be there. Look at this piece going into his shell. All of this. The pants, the stitching. NECA traditionally does a great job, but this monster series, I can never say it enough. They really went above and beyond with the detail work. So again, no additional head, but let's see what other accessories we got in those details. All right, his weapons, the size. They're like the electricity prods or whatever that would, you know, in Frankenstein, the movies, like these things are there to generate energy or whatever and send it in. So this is really nice. The paint work is really good. They look like just old, worn pieces of metal. There's a kind of a bit of a texture to it as well when you touch it. It's not just smooth plastic, which is a nice touch. I mean, you know, whether that's just a byproduct of the way they paint it or whatever. The additional hands, again, the detail work is just top notch on both of these. While they both have staples and cuts and things into the hands, they are different from each other, which is certainly nice. If you're going to display these hands together, you don't want them to look identical. Same thing with the fists, grungy fingernails. So those are the details for Raphael and his accessories. Let's get into articulation. Now, with a figure like this, you might expect low levels of articulation. Let's see how this one fares. If you haven't watched the videos about April as the Bride of Frankenstein or Michelangelo as the Mummy, those had really good articulation. So the head, goodness, okay. There's like practically nothing on the head. It's a very tight turn. There is a neck joint and the head joint. You know, the neck is going to help a little bit make up for the difference of the head, but you can't really get a whole lot of movement. You know, you really force that neck to make up the difference. The head doesn't want to do a lot. It's a little stiff on top of the fact that it doesn't have a whole lot of articulation by default. But if you get this guy, know that the neck has some work that you can kind of push it around. So it's not, he's not the worst when it comes to heads, but it's not great. Arms. So yeah, I would expect a full articulation this way, even with the shell, especially on this side because it has less sticking out, it seems, than you will have on this side. Now, the hinge there, as expected, in and out. He's a lot tighter in the joints than Michelangelo in April. It could just be my figure, of course. I did not heat him up. Rotation on the left arm still does really well, even considering the hoses and things. So you can get it around just fine. So if you do have issues with articulation and joints and things, know that you can heat them up with a hairdryer or warm to hot-ish water to soften all those pieces up. I haven't done that on this guy, so we'll see if I regret that and something breaks. The elbow is not too bad. I mean, it's double jointed. It's the loosest out of all the joints so far. But obviously the elbow pads are going to stop a lot of articulation there. The rotation at the elbow is good. There's a little bit in the forearm as well, so you get rotation here and the wrist. Just another tight joint. So this one has 90 degrees either way, up and down on that. Yeah, full rotation, so you get some nice wrist action out of him. Same thing on both sides. This is all one piece. There's nothing going on here. This is a little soft, so you can kind of like push in on his guts here. All of this shirt and his shell is actually a soft material. There's a little bit of play in his torso. So like there's a joint maybe in there somewhere, but you really can't move him much in that sense. Get these chains out of the way, check the legs out. Legs, you can go into a sit-ish kind of sitting pose if you needed to. The backwards movement is not bad. I mean, it does get stopped by the shell. The ball joints, which really help with articulation. He's beginner splits. He's not doing too well. Can't go full Van Damme. That's a disappointment. The knees, of course, are going to get blocked by these pads, but double jointed in the knee area, but you're not getting much articulation at all out of the knees despite double articulation. I think the pads are just extra big, clothing, everything. He's just a very thick figure in every sense. Not too bad, but yeah. No rotations anywhere, nothing here, nothing in the ankles, at least I'm not finding that. Oh, there we go, look at that. So above the knee pads, you can get his knees, legs all the way around. That's really gonna help with posing him out. So that's definitely a helpful spot. And then that's it. Articulation. All the little pieces they put in this are just top notch, as usual with this monster series. Be sure to check the description for those links. As cool as he looks, you don't get a different head. The accessories are very lacking. The best thing he's got going for him is the detail. All okay to you because the details are really worth it, or is the lack of accessories and articulation and posing really just killing it? Let me know down in the comments, and we'll see you next time.